John, a tired truck driver, drove his lonesome rig down the deserted highway as the moonless night closed in. The only company he had was the noise of the engine as rain beat on the windshield. Since his divorce, he has been plagued by a persistent sense of loneliness. John's car's headlights pierced the fog and drizzle, exposing a deserted highway. He had been alone on this deserted stretch of roadway for hours, but he didn't mind. He was able to reflect on his decisions and how they affected his life. A dim, shadowy figure appeared by the side of the road as John drove more into the night. A woman, drenched to the skin with her dark hair sticking to her face, was standing there. Her eyes were glowing with an ethereal light, and her thumb was extended in a global gesture. John was hesitant at first since his emotions were fighting with his gut reaction. He knew the legend of the phantom hitchhiker that supposedly walked this road. They warned that whomever took her under their care would share her fate in the hereafter. Something about the wet woman, her tiny body trembling in the chilly rain, struck a chord with him. He couldn't risk abandoning her on this lonely road in this storm. He sighed and pulled over as the woman clambered into the cab, her wet garments pouring onto the old seats. She said nothing, and the silence she brought to the truck's cabin made everyone shiver. As in, "Where are you going?" To break the awkward pause, John asked. She faced him, her alien eyes still aglow. She echoed, "Home," and it was eerie. John was chilled to the bone, yet he continued on. "Okay, I'll get you as far as I can." The woman nodded, and they kept on walking silently along the deserted roadway. John couldn't escape the notion that he'd done something incredibly wrong, one that would alter the direction of his life irrevocably. The rain became heavier, and the roadway appeared to go on forever as they drove farther into the night. John's discomfort increased with the distance traveled. He didn't know why he had the unsettling sensation that invisible eyes were following his every move, but he did. The woman spoke abruptly, her voice deep and eerie, saying, "You should have left me on the side of the road." John swerved as his heart pounded and he caught a glimpse of her. Her eyes, which had been dreamy and far away, were suddenly cold and threatening. Once he picked up the spectral hitchhiker, there was no way to get rid of him. He learned the awful reality. They were abandoned on the lonely highway when the truck's motor sputtered and died. John's heart raced as he frantically tried to restart the truck, but it seemed to have vanished into the night. The air was filled with the woman's icy and unpleasant laughter. She said in a low voice, "Welcome to my world," implying that more horrors lay ahead. John felt helpless as the phantom hitchhiker's actual character was revealed to him, drawing him deeper into a nightmare voyage from which there seemed to be no escape. The rain never let up, beating down on the stationary vehicle like a relentless, terrible force. John's pulse was pounding and he was breathing in tiny, panicked gasps inside the taxi. He had to face the facts. He and the spectral hitchhiker were doomed to spend the night on the lonely roadway. When I first saw her, the woman's eyes had a haunting, ethereal radiance. Now they were a terrible, evil crimson, burning with an unholy fire. John sensed a growing feeling of foreboding while he was in her company. The question, "What do you want?" John stutteringly spoke to the ethereal apparition next to him, his voice shaking. The woman's unsettling eyes met his own, and a sarcastic grin tugged at the edges of her lips as she looked directly at him. "I want to be free," she said, her voice a dissonant tune. "Plus, you're going to provide a hand, right?" John became even more perplexed. "Assist you? How?" John felt a chill go down his spine at the sound of the hitchhiker's laughing, which resonated through the truck's cabin. The finality in her voice as she stated, "You've picked me up, driver," was terrifying. "Now that we're tied together, we'll be able to break my curse." John couldn't ignore the mounting dread he was feeling as the term curse hung heavy in the air. He had heard tales of the curse of the phantom hitchhiker, which doomed anybody who gave her a ride to an end far more terrible than death. "Why me?" John asked in an almost inaudible voice. The woman's red eyes stared unblinkingly at him. "Because you chose to show me kindness," she said, her voice tinged with cruel sarcasm. "However, there is a cost to kindness." The truck's engine sprung to life at the wave of her hand, seemingly in response to her instruction. John's terror grew as he realized he could no longer steer his car. The spectral hitchhiker exerted an unexplainable influence over him. As they drove down the flooded roadway, the hitchhiker recounted her terrible backstory. She had formerly inhabited this world and walked these identical streets. However, a tragic accident had taken her life, and now her soul was doomed to endlessly roam this lonely roadway in search of a means to free herself. "I've been trapped here for so long," she said, her voice full of eerie melancholy. To paraphrase, "But you, driver, you're going to help me find the answer, a way to release both of us from this torment." The horrifying reality of John's position ran through his head. He was under the control of a malicious ghost with supernatural abilities. However, he also couldn't ignore the tiny twinge of compassion he felt toward the hitchhiker and her unending ordeal. He decided to help her in her pursuit of freedom with a heavy heart and a sense of foreboding, not realizing what a treacherous path lied ahead. John and the spectral hitchhiker became odd friends as they drove farther into the night, the rain washing away their concerns, and ultimately leading them to confront the demonic powers that kept them captive on this cursed roadway. John and the ghostly hitchhiker, whose name she revealed to be Isabelle, became closer and closer as they traveled down the drenched highway together, in an effort to free her restless soul from the curse that had been binding it. John felt an odd kinship to Isabelle's terrible predicament as her ghostly presence transformed from an alarming specter to a haunting friend. Isabelle told the narrative of her love, betrayal, and desperate search for forgiveness as they traveled into the night. She was headed for the man who had mistreated her, the one who had left her heartbroken and filled with a raging need for vengeance. Isabelle said, her voice a spectral symphony, "It was that rage, that burning need for justice, that led me to this cursed highway. To paraphrase, I wanted him to feel the pain he had caused me, but my anger unleashed forces beyond my control." John could relate to Isabelle's story of betrayal and retribution since he too had known his fair share of loss and sorrow. Even as he struggled with the magical powers that surrounding them, he could not help but feel sympathy for her. Along the way, they came upon a rundown hotel that seemed like a specter emerging from the shadows. Isabelle warned John to stop because she believed the hotel was somehow linked to the curse that held her captive. Elias, the motel's old proprietor, greeted them in the lobby where the lighting was drab and he looked exhausted from years of seeing the supernatural. For many years, Elias had guarded the roadway, keeping its dark secrets hidden. Sighing heavily, Elias said that the curse was the result of a deal made with a malicious ghost many years ago. The ghost wanted revenge on her tormentors, so she took the form of a highway patrol and set her sights on unwary passengers like Isabelle. Elias, his voice laden with remorse, stated, "The only way to break the curse is to confront the spirit, to put it another way. But it's a perilous journey, one that few have survived." Isabelle looked at John with fiery resolve in her eyes. Her tone was firm as she continued, "We must confront the spirit and end this curse once and for all." Following Elias's hesitant lead, they continued deeper into the haunted roadway, where the presence of the otherworldly became stronger with each step they took. There was a palpable sense of gloom in the air, and the shadows appeared to close in on them. The very fabric of reality appeared to bend and change as they got closer to the cursed location where the furious ghost had met her awful end. A translucent apparition of the spirit appeared before them. Isabelle, burdened by her own personal grudge, faced the ghost in an effort to get understanding and resolution. The ghost's story of betrayal and retribution was eerily similar to Isabelle's, and the two spirits soon realized they were destined to meet. In a scary showdown, the ghost admitted that her fury and the evil within her had trapped her on the road. On the other hand, she was tired of her wretched life and found hope in Isabelle. As Isabelle and the enraged ghost forged a covenant, shaking the roadway with their magical force, they broke the spell that had chained them for so long. The evil spirit's power faded with a flash of ethereal light, and the darkness receded. After the strange light left Isabelle's eyes, she looked to John with a grateful expression. When she finally got the courage to say thank you, her voice was filled with a profound calm. After the highway's curse was broken, the rain stopped and peace returned to the once haunted route. John and Isabelle left the cursed roadway behind them, their souls altered by their combined adventure and the mysterious forces that had challenged their resolve. John wondered as they drove away if the highway's spectral legacy would remain a reminder of the horror they had fought together, or if they had actually fled the wicked powers that had brought them together. John and Isabelle returned to the world they had left behind after breaking the spell on the haunted roadway and dispersing the harmful effect of the vengeful ghost. The rain had stopped, and the beautiful star-filled sky hinted at a new beginning. John and Isabelle were both relieved and freed as they drove off the highway. The mystical energies that had trapped them had dissipated, and the curse that had been plaguing Isabelle for so long could finally be broken. The voyage, though, had made a lasting impression on both of them. John had accepted his own history and the decisions that had led him to that fateful meeting on the highway, and Isabelle had found peace and atonement. The hardships they had endured together had built a strong bond between them, and they now all knew the value of forgiveness and compassion. Once a terrifying apparition, Isabelle was now a source of solace and reassurance for John. Isabelle kept her attention on the horizon as they drove forward down the open road. "I feel free," she said, her voice filled with awe. As he nodded, a calmness came over John. "We both do," he said, maintaining a firm hold on the wheel. To reach the light, one must sometimes first face the darkness. A nagging fear that the evil spirits they had encountered on the haunted highway would not be so easily dispelled remained with them even as they drove away. They still bore scars from their encounters with the otherworldly, and weren't sure whether they'd ever fully recovered. John and Isabelle's lives would never be the same after their meeting with the ghostly hitchhiker and the curse that bonded them together. But they were ready to start a new chapter as the miles wore on. Their combined experience would cast long shadows, a chilling reminder of the evil that waited beyond the veil of the living. And so their tale unfolded, a mysterious account of the paranormal and the unbreakable tie that was made through the ordeals of the haunted roadway, a bond that would eternally link them to the specters of their past.